Kayla? Well, these new numbers are troubling. Last year, Maricopa County prosecutors charged 150 juveniles as adults, mostly for violent crimes involving guns. We're talking about teenagers committing first-degree murders, armed robberies, and aggravated assaults. And many times, convictions come with sentences longer than the teenage suspect has even been alive. To help change that, Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell helped pass Preston's Law last year. The legislation is in honor of 16-year-old Preston Lord, who died after a brutal beating by a group of teenagers outside a Queen Creek Halloween party in 2023. Preston's Law created a new category of assault called swarming. It's now a Class 4 felony when 3 or more people attack one person.
Since Preston's Law took effect last September, we have charged 63 people. More than half of those, 34, are juveniles. Of those juveniles, 21 have been charged just since April of this year. I refuse to accept that this is just the way things are these days. Young people deserve a brighter future than what a prison cell brings.
And detectives in Surprise say Preston's Law may apply in a case they're currently investigating. In April, a teenager was threatened and attacked at gunpoint at a house party after the victim's attorney says he was lured there through social media. So far, 2 teens are facing charges, but the investigation is ongoing as police work to identify other suspects. Sadly, Mitchell says situations like that are not rare. Her office is seeing cases involving teens and guns just about every day. She says teens are buying and selling guns online or stealing them from cars.